And hello and welcome. My name is Martin, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be introducing the idea of trigger boxes and cinematics. Now, a trigger box basically is like this object right here. You see this green outline, and what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to be able to trigger an event off of something contacting that, sort of like a collision box, but free and in the world, and that can, let's say, trigger an event. So there's one of the trigger boxes there. We're actually going to use this one to end up in one of the rooms up here. Then I've got another two that I'm using here. So another thing that a trigger box can be done. So it doesn't just have to be, and we'll see it over there. So with that example, we just walk into it and it happens. Or whatever the event tied into the trigger box happens. With this trigger box, that's not the case. This one, you actually have to engage, whoever the player is has to engage a key on their keyboard to be able to get the trigger box to then allow for the door to open. You'll also see that we do have a cinematic that's up there. So that's what a cinematic will look like on the floor as far as the object as it's contained in the editor so that we can see it. This will also allow us to be able to connect this two pieces of code. So just like you can select the trigger box and create a reference to it in a blueprint, you'll be able to reference cinematics that way as well by having this box and being able to do that. Now, and the last one that I've got is the trigger box over here. And so what I've done with this one is I've actually made it to where when we run into this box, the box deletes. What it's going to do is reveal that there is a tunnel underneath here, and that tunnel has a ladder, and that ladder has a box collision, which we're actually going to use to create a up and down, up the ladder, down the ladder kind of movement for that, so that you can make it look like your character is walking going up or down a ladder. And we also have another cinematic here as well. This cinematic is going to move this out of the way, so it's sort of like, creating like a trap door or something like that type of an effect, again with a trigger box and a cinematic. And then the other thing we also have is a secondary level that the trigger box, once we are inside the house, let me see if I can, where am I? Let me turn this to unlit. Okay. Oh yeah, it'd be on the other side of the house. Hold on. So I have a room that I set up in here. There's a platform here where we'll appear, and then there's a trigger box there. And what that trigger box does is it takes us to another map. So that's how you're going to be able to go from level to level. So just to show you what the other level looks like, sort of like a small dungeon level or something like that, right? So I made sort of like a swampy exterior type deal. And with this, we also have a couple of other cinematics. So we are also going to use a cinematic by itself to create a platform moving, right? So we'll see this in just a minute as soon as I go through the demo. And then I have another cinematic here that's actually going to be triggered by the trigger box. So I've set up like a white panel here just so that I can have something to aim at, so I know where the trigger box is. And the idea of this is that if I'm standing here, I'll be able to shoot at that target, which could be anything. I mean, it could be a switch, or it could be something that needs to blow up, and then that would allow your thing to move over. Either way, what it does is a trigger box that when I shoot at it, the projectile that I shoots this and triggers the trigger box, and then that makes the platform move across. And again, there's the cinematic and the trigger box that we'll be using, and then there's another trigger box in the tunnel which will take us back to level 1. Now you could have that stream over to another level, so you could have this go from this level to level 2, and then you could have like a really complex bunch of like really small rooms where you have certain things and you have to sort of remember where the map is and all that sort of good stuff. But that's basically the gist of it. And this is I kind of tag this into level design because mostly what we're doing is creating movement in objects that would normally be either inanimate or would be considered part of the level. It's not an enemy character. It's not a first person character. It's not, well, it is designing the level. So that's what we're going to leave it at. It's level design. Okay, so let's go back to the main menu, or to the main level, and that will go ahead and do a real quick demo walkthrough of this. All right, so the first one is the one by the fountain. I'm going to trigger that. That's going to make the trigger box go away. We see that the object moved, right? From there, as I get on the ladder, I am able to hit my up and down arrow keys as long as I am inside of the box for this. The box collision. It's a long tunnel, sorry. All right, and once we get down to the bottom, we are free of that, and we are... Oh, right, that was one of my other trigger boxes. So that took us to this level right here. We can see that that platform is moving on its own. Okay, so we're going to wait for it. There it goes. All right, this platform is not moving, so I'm going to have to get on the platform, shoot at the box. That made the platform move over. And this one, I don't have it actually moving back. So at that point, you know, you can't get back to where you were. You're sort of stuck over here on this side. So now the only option that we have is to go down the tunnel. That'll take us back to level 1, where we started. Okay, so that's that one. We'll look at the door. So I do have the door able to open. I had to hit the E key, or the letter E on my keyboard, and that opens and closes the animation so long as I am inside the trigger box. If I'm outside the trigger box and I hit the E key, nothing happens, right? So that's that one. And let's look at the teleportation, which is sort of what I set up with this one right here, where we walk into the trigger box and we are taken to a different part in the game. All right, so now we're over here as opposed to being outside. This is the trigger box that will then teleport us back to outside. Okay, so now we are back outside. And if we wanted to, we could create an endless loop of that. So these boxes work to be able to send me into all those different areas. All right, and I think that's it. We saw going from level to level. We saw being able to trigger an event by hitting a key. We saw running into a trigger box to trigger an event like that. And when we were down in the tunnel, we saw when we went to the other world, or the other level, we saw that we could trigger things by shooting at them instead of us being able to actually physically reach them. So the other thing I'll also make mention of, I probably won't include it in, I'm still debating whether I'm going to include it in 9, is I have an elevator system that has been created, and there's actually 2 ways to make the elevator move. There is a actual system where the physical mesh itself moves up and like literally takes you, so you stay in the same level, you just hit a button and it goes up and it opens and closes where you need it to. I'm debating on whether I'm going to make this a bonus lab. I think I probably should make this a bonus lab, but it's basically the same thing. It would be trigger boxes, and then we'd be creating motion off of events, sort of like we saw with the fountain, if you did it that way. The other way to get this to work is to actually level jump with the trigger box. So you would walk into the box, and if you hit, let's say, the number 1 on your keyboard, it would take you to the first floor, so nothing would happen. You'd stay in the same level, and the doors wouldn't even close. If you hit 2, then we would get the doors to close, and the level would then take you to the next level. On completion of the doors closing, it looked like it would fade out, and then you would pop into the new level, and the doors would open, and you'd walk out, and you'd be on a different floor inside the building, but you'd also be in a different level. Now, the whole point of doing something like that is to not overload a single level with too many things. So that's why it's nice, sort of like over here when we triggered that box to go down, it actually took us to another level. That level was independent of this level, so it didn't tax the computer because it doesn't have to have all these materials loaded, all the particle systems loaded. So at that point, much easier, much better level design if you can flip from one level to the next level to work. All right, so that's the demo, and we'll start with the very first next video, which is going to be the easiest of the codes, which is the trigger box to send us to another level. So I hope you enjoyed the video and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.